Roguelikes and roguelites are the genres that I very much appreciate. I loved building various decks and then supporting them with fancy relics in Slay the Spire. Running through numerous biomes in Death Cells using different sets of weapons each time, trying to maximize their damage by picking up the right combination of stats. I also really liked the roguelite aspects in Darkest Dungeon. But to this day, my favorite roguelike experience is Enter the Gungeon. The sheer amount of weaponry, passive and active skill combination and all of the synergies made each run feel different, distinct. Even the bad runs where everything worked against me felt interesting, and when I had a good run, oh, that felt so good! West of Dead is the first game created by the studio called Upstream Arcade. It's a small indie studio consisting of people who worked previously in Lionhead Studios. You know, Fable series, Black and White series. West of Dead is marketed as a roguelite twin-stick cover shooter. One of its main selling points is the voice actor of our protagonist. The voice of William Mason is provided by well-known Hollywood actor Ron Perlman. If you are still wondering who Ron Perlman is, then let me show you. This is Ron Perlman. This is Ron Perlman. And this is Ron Perlman. I have to admit that I really liked his depiction of Hellboy in Guillermo del Toro's movies.
I could feel a presence. One of my old friends was nearby.
What interests me the most in West of Dead is how Ron's star power is utilized, how the gameplay mechanics, roguelike elements and visuals mesh with each other. The important question for me is if the game offers any depth to its mechanics and if there are any interesting ideas here, or is it just another roguelite experience in a highly competitive genre. So if you want to find answers to those questions, let me introduce you to Delayed Review West of Dead. This review is based on 20 hours spent in the game, 100% achievement completion. I have completed runs on Deputy, Gunslinger and Sheriff difficulty levels, which can be translated to easy, medium and hard. I only haven't finished a playthrough on very hard. I own Crow DLC. And I have unlocked most of the weapons and items the game has to offer. So here is what I think. West of Dead uses a pretty standard roguelite formula. Our character runs through a randomly generated zones which are a maze of corridors and combat rooms, collects power-ups and weapons. The further players are able to get, the stronger their character gets, but the moment they die, everything is lost, the run ends. Then the next randomized run starts from scratch. Well, not entirely from scratch, there are some upgrades that persist between runs. If you played a lot of games in this genre, you will feel like home. There is even a chance that you will feel too familiar with some features. The year is 1888. We play as Mason, a sheriff that got killed and is stuck in purgatory. From the gameplay perspective, the game's world consists of a few zones that player will traverse one after another in order to get to final boss. Each zone has its own theme and set of enemies. Of course, these zones are procedurally generated, so each time player die or start a new run, the layout of each zone will be different. However, with enough time spent playing, you can see some patterns in how the areas are built. As a standard feature in roguelite genre, with each consecutive run, players will unlock new equipment that will spawn in future runs, or new ways to permanently upgrade our character. There are 4 runes in the game. Each one adds a way to unlock new, previously unavailable pathways. First rune unlocks fast travel. Fortunately, it happens quite fast, so the inconvenience in explorations lasts for a really short time. Next runes unlock new means of travel or getting through obstacles. Thanks to that, the whole new zones can be unlocked. Okay, let's talk about combat. Our character has 2 open slots for weapons, 2 slots for utility items and also 1 slot for a charm. Equipped charms provide a passive effect, for example, regaining portions of lost health while hiding behind cover. When it comes to utility items, there is quite a big variety. There are smoke bombs, lanterns that provide light and stun enemies, traps, different types of knives that deal massive damage in melee. The list is quite long and diverse. Weapons can be split into 4 categories: revolvers, rifles, shotguns and handguns. Revolvers and handguns are very similar in usage. Shotguns offer a wider damage arc for each shot but are usually limited in terms of range. Rifles have mechanic of aiming before shooting, so the longer you will press the shoot button before releasing it, the more precise your shot will be. The 4 weapon classes encompass a diverse pool of firearms. They do not only differ by their stats, but also by other features. There is a weapon dealing more damage after rolling. There are guns focused on periodical damage over time. Defender Shotgun inflicts critical damage when shot from behind cover. West of that definitely offers some depth. But is some depth enough to make it an enticing experience for more than 10 hours? Well, let's talk about enemies and combat mechanics before I will give you my answer. Enemy variety is on the lower scope in here. Each zone has its pool of enemies that can spawn. Some of those foes will be exclusive to only one zone, but many of them will show up in multiple regions. I like how they are designed. Each enemy type has some kind of opening for the player to deal damage. Their attacks are telegraphed really well. When you mix different enemy types in the same battle area, player has to make some decisions about priority of taking down foes. It's really cool. The cover system is also very important. When our character gets close to a cover, he will glue itself to it. Sometimes it might feel like an actual glue because there is no button responsible for taking cover, so running around the rooms might be inconvenient because of it. The moment we will get close to some sort of cover, Mason will just stick to it, and getting out of cover without using roll button takes about half a second before our character will actually step out of it. It's coded weirdly and there is definitely room for improvement. In combat, this system actually works quite fine. It adds some tactical options in how you want to engage. Some enemies can also use the cover system, which makes it more interesting. Another important gameplay feature is light. The world of Purgatory is engulfed in darkness. There are those lanterns that our character can light up. Obviously, it shows up the nearby terrain, but also if there are enemies close to the source of light, then they will be stunned for a short while. So it adds another dynamic to the encounters. You can opt to light up the whole room right away. You will have vision, but lose out on those consecutive stuns. Lighting up the lanterns at specific occasions can help you in crowd control. But remember that where there are enemies in the dark, it's really hard to hit them. You really cannot see anything and your aim has to be perfect. The whole system of playing with lanterns is much more important on harder difficulty. West of Dead imposes its fixed camera upon players. You cannot rotate it, which can make both navigation and combat a pain. I haven't got that many problems with it, but sometimes it felt like I was fighting not only the enemies but also the camera. Many times there were adversaries in big rooms where they shot at me from behind the screen. Without the ability to change camera placement, I needed to slowly try to get to them and stay alive. At least the system warning players that they are getting aimed at works fine. It uses both visual and sound cues. I'm a big sucker for a well-designed boss fights. I really love the fights where you need to stay on your toes, where there are different phases, attack patterns to get right and then avoid. Unfortunately, West of Dead is really poor on this front. The game has only 3 kinds of bosses: Wendigo, Outlaws and the last boss. On their own, each one of those fights is designed competently. There is a limited pool of damaging abilities with clear tells. I would say that each boss could be a fine introductory fight in a game of this type, but they lack any advanced movesets. It's really easy to get a grip of how to defeat each adversary. It is also disheartening seeing how the last boss has some cool moves, but the variety is just not there, and the whole fight is also quite easy. Outlaw encounters are designed to be those dynamic, hectic duels, a one-on-one combat with a foe that can use weapons from the same pool as our character. This also adds a lot of variety to the Outlaw shootouts. One time they will use a damage over time weapon, the other time it will be an automatic rifle or a gun with homing missiles. They can also throw explosive or Molotov cocktails. There's a lot of chaos in those combat sections, changing covers, finding for a better shooting spot. It's a riveting experience at first, but quickly becomes mundane. If you spend more than 5 hours with West of Dead, you will notice that Outlaw encounters make about 80% of boss fights in the game. Those are also the most buggy combat sections in the game, which doesn't help either. West of Dead tries to give players some choice during their runs by introducing lost souls. Those are NPCs that can rarely spawn in some areas during our adventures. If player will choose to help them, they will take upon themselves the burdens of that soul. From the gameplay perspective, it translates to getting some currency and sometimes an item or a weapon in exchange for taking double the damage. In order to get rid of the burden, player have to kill 6 enemies. It seems like a tough choice, but most of the time I haven't hesitated and I just took the burden. Getting rid of it is quite easy and there are multiple ways to cheese enemy encounters. So let's go back to the question I asked earlier. Does the game offer enough depth to make it an enticing experience for more than 10 hours? The answer is no. It took me exactly 10 hours to finish the story. After that, I played the game for another 10 hours, farming achievements and trying to unlock the zones that I have missed. Zones and enemies quickly became repetitive. I realized that while there is a nice weapon variety, many of them feel similar in usage. At least, item choices can influence the way we play in a meaningful manner. You know, if you take a decoy and place it, you buy a couple of seconds per time when enemies focus their attacks on that decoy. A badge that nullifies damage for a short period of time can be that precious oh shit cooldown to press when things get heated. If you want to go balls deep, pew pew glass cannon style, you can take various damaging items like dynamite, throwing axe or throwing knives to just push for more damage. It's good. Item choices present variety that matters and changes playstyle. The absolute worst are the charms. The passive bonuses they give are mediocre and offer a very low synergy opportunities. The stat system is not designed well either. There are 3 stats. They seem to be similar to Dead Cells stat system, but in reality they are not. While in Dead Cells, we had different types of weapons that could scale with statistics. In West of Dead, the blue stat is tied to item damage and item cooldown, red stat is tied to weapon damage, and the green one is reserved for HP increases and melee damage increases. Most of the time you will use weapons to deal damage, so upgrading red stat feels like a necessity. I guess there will be a person that will viciously defend green-blue item-based builds, or maybe even melee build. I tried those builds, but in my experience on harder difficulties those are unreliable, and even trying to make them work requires a lot of setup. It's unfortunately not good. The green-red build with maybe 1 point in item stat felt like it was the most reliable. So unfortunately, after the 10th hour mark, the game starts to get very repetitive. What at first seemed like a decent system with enough variety and depth turned out to be bland and quite flat. Maybe it's a matter of my expectations. It really could be. But you know, this is my review and that's how I see things. I just thought that West of Dead will offer a more lasting experience. Let's not beat around the bushes. The game unfortunately is buggy. There are numerous glitches. Fortunately, most of them are minor. Most of the bugs I encountered were tied to the game not recognizing my shots connecting with the enemy models. This is extremely apparent during the outlaw boss fights. One time, my enemy just bugged in a way that I couldn't damage it with regular weapons. Only area of effect damage worked. Thankfully, I had a dynamite with me. After dealing some damage, the foe finally unstuck itself. Outlaws also tend to sometimes hide behind cover and just sit there. Even when you get into a position of clear shot and you are just spraying bullets all over them, they do not move. It's safe to say that I haven't got a single run without a bug or a glitch. Background music and sound sometimes bugs out. It either totally stops playing or gets into a weird muffled state. I also got 2 crashes during my time with the game. And there is one game-breaking bug that occurs from time to time. Your character can fall below the map. If that happens, you have to leave the run and try to get back. There was one time when this bug wrecked my whole run. It happened during the last boss. I fell below the floor, so I could not deal damage. I fired up Task Manager, closed the game and returned into the run, hoping that I will respawn before approaching the boss. Unfortunately, there were no boss in the room anymore. It was supposed to be my story-ending run, so it was quite infuriating. And well, if I had done the run at that time, it would take me 9 hours to finish the story instead of 10. I played the game on mouse and keyboard. While probably game controller is a preferred experience, I can't say that I had any problems with controls. So it's fine. What's not fine are the game options. They are very minimalistic. While I do not care about graphic settings and things like that in an indie titles, not letting me to reassign keys and controls is a letdown. In actuality, it didn't affect me that much because the default settings are okay to use, but option to change them should not be locked. And just a side note here. The game is designed in a way that does not let you shoot enemies that are on a higher or a level lower than our character. There are some zones that contain ladders and different terrain levels. The ladder design is bad. Using them takes too much time and totally throws you off from the game's rhythm. I dreaded every time I had to climb a ladder. This problem becomes apparent in the battlefield region. Let me just say that I hated this zone. It's terrible to play, overly long corridors with nothing in it, and then you have to climb up or climb down before each combat room. It just felt like willful waste of players' time. I did the zone only once for achievement and never came back. Since I'm talking about level design, let's stay at that topic and also touch on graphics and visuals. Location design is pretty standard for the genre. Corridors leading into room with enemies, each zones have some patterns that become apparent the longer you play, but there is of course randomization thanks to procedural generation.
Didn't even touch me.
West of Dead has its own visual style, comic book-like or graphic novel-like thick outlines with a limited yet vibrant color palette. Everything is spread with a significant Western movie vibes. Developers put a lot of focus on a theme of darkness surrounding our main character. Player has to fight for the right to uncover more terrain thanks to how the lanterns work. Each zone uses a minimalistic color pattern with one dominating color. Red in canyon, yellowish in farmlands, brown in the crypt. From my point of view, the color is the biggest distinction between the zones. Many players might not notice that every zone has its own different terrain details because of how dark everything is. That's a problem created by the decision to make everything being engulfed in overwhelming shadow. I think that this is a conscious developer decision. You can't have it all. I feel like developers put more emphasis on darkness and focusing on that light and shadow gameplay instead of focusing on uncovering terrain details. Those things are still there, but because of the massive void surrounding the player, those features are easily missable. I don't mind how the game looks. I think that the visuals with the mash of Western and darkness themes create a distinct style, one that stands on its own.
I see a table prepared for dinner. The woman opposite stares at her lap.
Music and sound work in West of Dead are decent. They're of course the major highlight of using Ron Perlman's characteristic voice. Combat music plays in a great synergy with killing waves of enemies. It's good. There is this piece created by the Cat and the Stoic called Run. It was used in a trailer for the game. It's still connected with West of Dead promotion and I highly recommend you to check it out. Just type it in YouTube and check it. I can't stop listening to this track. It's such a shame that it was not utilized anywhere in the game. Credits could be a blast with the addition of this music. The story focuses on our protagonist, Mason, and his chase of every evildoer out of purgatory, as well as him trying to regain his memories. I was hopeful that the studio will use Ron Perlman's star power wisely. Unfortunately, while Mason's bullets strike with great precision, the narrative arc is a miss. Ron narrates the story in a calm, melancholic way, but it's not enough to form a connection. Even his remarks about the preacher, his arch nemesis, seem to lack weight. I found it hard to care and to even connect with the main character. The way that Mason interrupts the game flow with his remarks during gameplay does not help either.
Weren't none of my old deputies here, but I was getting close.
While rewatching the trailer for the game, I felt like the main character showed in that trailer had so much more personality than what we got in the finished product. Maybe it's all about some cinematic close-ups and showing even a little bit of a reaction from our flaming skull friend. I'm not sure, but let's just say that I didn't care about the plot at all. And the game protagonist is the only voiced character in the game. The other NPCs and enemies all use written dialogue. I came to expect those kind of things from indie projects since, money is usually an issue, so some corners had to be cut. I do not perceive it as a flaw. It's just how it is here. Let me quickly mention Crow DLC. It offers very little content, a new zone that's quite hard to get into and also from my experience abysmal to play. there is also a new enemy type and a new weapon. Ah, I almost forgot. It's titular Crow. It is a familiar that follows our hero. It does nothing. Most of the time it's really hard to even notice it. So just a cosmetic pet pretty much. It's safe to say that I consider this DLC to be lackluster. The good thing, it's cheap. But what I didn't notice until I started to read into Community Hub on Steam is that Crow DLC is a day one DLC. Seriously? You just created a studio and this is how you want to win some fans? By double dipping into their pockets? Sorry, but I firmly believe that this practice is just a bad form. Day one DLC is just cut content from the base game. It's despicable and made me lose a lot of hope and goodwill about Upstream Arcade Studio. This is the part where I will check out the latest Steam reviews for this game. I'm interested in other people's opinions about this title and I want to compare those with my thoughts. As always, quick reminder, I do not think that my opinion is in any way superior, I just want to compare it with other people's points of view. At the time of posting this video, West of Dead sits at a score of 78% positive reviews out of 496 user reviews. Most people praise the visual art style and Ron Perlman's voice acting. There are a lot of reviews talking positively about the story. For me it's a shocking revelation because I really think that the story is mediocre and unengaging. Ron's talent is not used to its full potential, but I might be wrong. I appreciate the fact that many reviews, both positive and negative, talk about the game getting stale and repetitive really fast. If we are focusing on negative opinions, a lot of reviews point out bugs and many glitches that occur in West of Dead. Many people also didn't like the controls. Let's get specific. Here we can see a user displeased with the game's tedium and repetitiveness. The visual theme of darkness is also criticized. I understand this person's point of view, but I can understand what the developers were going for. Story, voice acting and level design also received their share of disapproval. Here we can see a review focusing mainly on the stickiness aspect of the cover system. I already talked about this mechanic and I agree with the reviewer. This is a well thought out review. I agree with many points this person makes. I also spent a reasonable amount of time trying to figure out if the pros outweigh the cons. You will soon get to know my verdict. And like the reviewer, I am going to patiently wait for the next game from Upstream Arcade. The foundation is solid, a little bit more polish and the next game might be very interesting. Just cut those day one DLC practices. There are 24 achievements to unlock in this game. Completing each type of zone for the first time grants a trophy. Then there are awards given for acquiring each one of the 4 runes. As our main goal in the game is to kill the Preacher, there are achievements for killing his different forms. The last one is awarded for banishing him, which will require gathering Mason's 3 crew members before accessing the last boss, and also taking an extra step during fight.
Trail end.
The last and only problematic achievements are the ones tied to Outlaws and Lost Souls. The final versions of those trophies require to kill 50 Outlaws and to help 50 Lost Souls. You can try to do it regular way, by doing the whole run, but during one full clear there are only 3 Lost Souls and 3 Outlaws. When we talk about Lost Souls, only the yellow ones count. Mason mates that are kinda bluish do not count for the progression. Also, you do not need to get rid of a burden after taking it. The achievement requires you to just take burden upon you. As soon as the soul vanishes, it counts. When it comes to Outlaws, only the ones mentioned in the bar before you start the run count. So, only the ones that are placed inside the actual zones, not the ones that are in between zones. If you want to reduce time needed for maxing out those achievements, there's an easy way. Just start new run, see if there is an outlaw in the crypt. If there is, just rush to him on easiest difficulty, kill him, quit the run and start over. If there is no outlaw in the crypt, then start a new run right away. Rinse and repeat. When it comes to Lost Souls, after you start the run, Mason tells a line suggesting that one of his mates is close or that there is no body of his in the area. If he suggests there is one close, then scout first zone really fast. As I said, the actual bodies of Mason, aka Blue Souls, do not count for the achievement, so do not talk to them. But there is a high probability that there will be Lost Souls spawning in some other room. They only spawn in small square rooms. Take burden from them, wait for them to disappear, and then start a new run. From my experience, when our protagonist makes a remark about his body being close, there is about 60%, maybe a little bit more chance that the yellow souls also spawned. And that's it for the achievements. The game's setting, Purgatory, a place suspended between hell and heaven, presents a great allegory as to where this game sits. It has some very nice qualities such as varied weaponry, distinct visual art style, and of course Ron Perlman as the game's protagonist. Unfortunately, there are numerous issues preventing West of Dead to ascend into the gaming heaven. Numerous bugs and glitches, unengaging storyline, lack of boss variety, day one DLC offering cut content. This is a good product for 5-10 hours playtime. After that, the repetitiveness hits and players start to realize that what seemed to be a sprawling, deep system allowing for various builds is actually very limited. Each run starts to feel similar. In my opinion, that's the biggest flaw of the game. My time spent with the game was actually quite fine, but I can't recommend this title. In a crowded market of indie roguelikes and roguelites, West of Dead, while made in a competent way, lacks the longevity and staying power. Damn, I really thought that I can make this video to be 10-15 minutes long. For some reason I cannot make it short. I really tried. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you are interested in my overly long video reviews and analysis of a little bit older video games, then please subscribe. If you liked it, hit the thumbs up. If you didn't like it, hit the thumbs down and maybe let me know what you didn't like. Criticism is appreciated. The question to you after this video is going to be really simple. What is your favorite roguelike and why? So I guess that's all from me. Bye.